Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and shit.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication.
It's over 9,000! My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there.
Don't face me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a firing believer! Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man!
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show, airing on Phoenix 92.5 FM and all those other wonderful places on the internet such as Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and of course our own website. I am Cian, and with me once again is Kev. Kev, how are you doing?
I've been in a hole for several weeks and I'm only now seeing the light. It's been so long, Cian. But why do they make me work?
I have no clue what he's talking about either. What?
It's just, I've been so busy, and there's a reason I haven't been on this podcast in like 5 weeks. College sucks. Kids, listen to me. Don't do it. It's never worth it.
Well, we're off to a great start.
Just a piece of advice from old Uncle Kev here. College hurts.
The new title of the podcast, Old Uncle Kev's Wily Wisdom.
Old Uncle Kev's wily wisdom. I think, looking at the rundown of the episode, I think we've got a lot of old Uncle Kev's wily wisdom.
In our old...
Kev is about to have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, and the person you're talking to is a parent and a teacher. So...
And I am a qualified uncle.
Yes, we are going to be covering the seeming temporary end of Star Trek, as well as a 30-year-old franchise. So if you're looking for those up-to-date hot topic issues like the new Marvel thing, skip forward or back on this playlist. Or if you're on the radio, I don't know, check in next week. I know we shouldn't tell people that, but sure, it is what it is.
Completely
but
now that you mention it. My wife watched it. I never did. I heard it was good.
What, the new Daredevil?
No, there's that new Daredevil season out?
This week, yes.
Oh, God, I gotta
If you were
get on that.
trendy,
No.
you'd have watched it.
God damn it. No, I was talking about Wonder Man.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. No, you have been gone a while. I've been raving about Wonder Man on this podcast for about 2 months now.
My wife watched it. Apparently it's good. I've just been in a hole.
It's my favorite Disney Plus Marvel show.
Dang.
And like that's including like the WandaVision and like Agatha and all that stuff.
I have actually... Well, we will get to the headline. We will actually get to the stories involved. But like, I think what we were saying was supposed to be like a pretty dead year for Marvel up until like Doomsday. There has been like a kind of a bevy of announcements on the run-up. There's the Spider-Man trailer, and also we're getting a Punisher one-off.
Yes, it's going to be... So the Daredevil series is going to run. The Punisher one-off is going to come out as Daredevil ends, and that's going to segue into the Punisher being in Spider-Man. So they are basically... Not that anyone listens to my Marvel advice, but they are basically responding to the complaints I had, which is that everything felt very disconnected. So, like, now... Daredevil is going to be linked to Punisher, is going to be linked to Spider-Man, is going to be linked to Doomsday. So it feels like everything's kind of singing off the same hymn sheet a little bit once again.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a bungee cording in like the other extreme direction where it sounds like you kind of like, I think the worst traits of pre-Infinity War of having to watch everything to get anything, but it helps that this is all kind of the best stuff Marvel's been doing in the past decade. Because Daredevil Born Again was stellar, and I'm very happy to hear that new stuff is, that a new one's coming out. Actually, I think since I last talked to you, I finally got around to watching the original Punisher series.
Oh, the Netflix one?
Yeah, which is really good.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm like delighted. I think like very much the like current Punisher stuff is heavily just built around how much John Bernthal loves that character and is really good at playing him.
Yeah, it's almost like the anti-Ryan Reynolds, where there is something delightful about just letting him play that character.
Yeah.
Or I suppose Vincent D'Onofrio a bit as well, where there is something satisfying by just seeing them on screen. Like,
oh yeah, well I mean like that's, you could say everybody involved in the cast of Daredevil, like Charlie Cox and Deborah Ann Wolf, like the entire cast is stacked. But yeah, no, like it's a great through line, and then obviously leading up to Spider-Man, which kind of is like I've been down, like I've been on record as being pretty down on Marvel recently, but that Spider-Man movie looks good.
yeah, that's directed by the same director as Shang-Chi and Wonder Man.
Yeah, I do like Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, I think, to be honest, I'm not wild on the three, even though I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man personally. I'm kind of only lukewarm on his 3 films. So if you can keep the cast and sort of give it a bit of a shot of energy on the production side, I think that could be a good recipe, like, you know.
I think the biggest benefit they have decided to move towards is actually making them all adults.
Yes, but I said that last week as well, which is that as a comic reader, Spider-Man was kind of the only character who like grew up and had different phases of his life in a meaningful way. And so seeing that cinematically is very rewarding too.
Yeah. And with the potential of the Fantastic Four being introduced and wrapped in, having that established relationship start to bloom potentially is kind of exciting. Because like that interplay of Spider-Man and the Four was always like, I didn't read a lot of comics, but like the bits I've seen of like them interacting is great.
Yes, him and Johnny have a sort of a chalk and cheese, as in the Human Torch. They have that dynamic, where the Human Torch is sort of jealous of like Spider-Man's like kind of relative anonymity, and the Spider-Man is jealous of the Human Torch's like public celebrity success and financial well-being and all that. So like if they got something like that, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So like, okay, I still have low hopes for Doomsday. And what that means for like the entire kind of Marvel oeuvre. But okay. They're making moves that I like to see. And I suppose
Fun.
And I suppose it helps that Disney are now in a surplus of $1 billion.
Yes. Well then, do you want to flag a potential pitfall for the Disney thing as our first topic? Because now I'm not a very tech savvy person. I kind of wish Dara was here for this. Because this week, I believe the app Sora closed down, which was like one of the apps that made AI generated content readily available to the public in a big way, particularly in regards to making creative things, for lack of a less kind word.
Quote unquote creative.
As it purely as opposed to like mathematical things. I don't mean that if making anything on AI is creative. It's crazy. Sora, the person who made it.
Yeah, Sora was OpenAI's video tool, and OpenAI are the big player in this game. OpenAI is ChatGPT. So like that's the company. Like of all of them out there, and every tech brand, you know, latching an AI system to their wagon, OpenAI are the ones kind of ahead of the charge. And mostly like this, it's big news in kind of one particular regard. Like it's big news that kind of indicates a lot of different things, but like the headline is the fact that Disney had previously planned to invest literally $1 billion, like 9 zeros, into Sora as a video tool and how to integrate it into their Disney Plus account, which nobody liked. Nobody liked that idea. Very, very much telltale. Everybody hated that. But since then, as of this week, OpenAI have shuttered Sora as a service. You can no longer access it. And while there isn't really like a reason given, I think they mentioned just wanting to reshuffle their like portfolio or whatever. I think this just indicates a shift in the economics of the entire AI industry into a downward trend. Because the thing about AI as a business and why it's kind of everywhere, like the reason why every single software, like we're recording on Zoom and the first thing you have is Zoom AI but on a pop-up.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because AI has become a capital buzz term to inflate the value of a product in its stock market, making it seem more valuable than it previously was.
Okay.
I'm not a stock expert.
But what, like, I appreciate you're not a stock expert, but what is it about, say, a company saying they have AI involved in their infrastructure and all that kind of stuff? What is it that makes it more valuable to investors and that kind of stuff?
That is a great question. I don't have the answer to that because the stock markets inherently are kind of made up. And I'm not trying to be redundant. It kind of is. Like it is very much a market of perceived value. And just the capital zeitgeist has decided of the past 5 years that AI is the hallmark, is the thing that people want to invest in. And it's the reason like tech prices have ballooned, that like stock prices have ballooned so much. But the thing about inflating stock prices to that degree in something of perceived value that is so evident in that like the end consumer broadly doesn't want it. When was the last time you met anybody that actually like wanted an AI integrated anything?
I work in one or two places where they use AI to make like posters for like weekly meetings and stuff. But by and large, I don't know, because I'm friends with lots of artists. Yes, they don't know anyone who is like thrilled about AI in general, let alone enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, like it's not something that like I think a lot of people broadly have accepted, and because like the large end user base aren't buying into this, aren't actually funding this surge in market value. So like literally the question, where is the money to value this coming from?
Okay, so it's kind of speculative in a way that like companies and investors believe that AI is like the big new exciting thing and therefore invest in it, and companies buy it and they are all investing in each other.
Yes.
So that inflates it to a certain point where the public at large, who, you know, despite having less money per person, have more money in general, aren't actually buying or investing in AI to a degree that any of these people who are investing in it will make some sort of return on it.
We should be an economics podcast. No, that's actually that like it's a very concise way of putting what I understand to be stock prices. Like, so yeah, and that's kind of it. Like the bubble has hit a point where things are just kind of starting to collapse.
Yeah, and we're not even getting into like how much they damage the environment or the like philosophical ramifications,
the pollution involved in any of the data centers involved, the just blatant theft of all intellectual property on like any sort of data bank. Like all AI models have to be fed on something, and they claim to be fed on paid for material that like isn't encroaching on copyright material, but it all is.
Yeah.
It's all there. And
You expect the AI to check rigorously for each ingredient in like someone's random photo generated request. There's no way. I don't know much about tech, and I know enough to know it wouldn't do that.
no, and also the fact that like no matter how much they claim it will be, it can't create anything new. It can only iterate on what it has been given. And so all it's kind of doing is copying and pasting.
Well, that's why the key word is not AI created content, it's AI generated. It's a subtle distinction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I don't like have any misgivings with anyone who like uses AI. Like, you know, the world is full of people, all that kind of stuff. I personally have never been comfortable with it. I just feel like it's now obviously it could just be because I'm of a certain age, and once you reach a certain age, things could pop up in the world that aren't made for you, and you sort of have to make your peace with it, you know. But all that said, I have found AI to be incredibly creepy and unsettling in pretty much every way, in how it's conceived, in how people use it, in how it looks. It's got that weird, ugly kind of sheen to it, even when it's kind of like looks effective. I don't like having videos on my various things and not being 100% sure that they're real or not. And I'll be honest, even though, like, you know, Disney is a for-profit company, I didn't like the idea of them essentially thumbing the scale to make it something that's more in our kind of collective, like, day-to-day use. So I'm personally delighted that even if this doesn't slow it down necessarily, it's a bit of a black eye for, like, the growth of this industry. I find it to be very, very cynical and upsetting, personally.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty against it fundamentally. Like there's no ignoring just like the moral the moral implications on any of it. As I mentioned, the theft and pollution is enough for me to say, no, this just isn't. Right. Like we don't need this. And again, the fact that it is being pushed onto every platform and is only just making things slower.
Yes, exactly. Like, imagine if we reach a certain point, like, environmentally, where we don't have enough water to cope. And the reason we don't is because someone wanted to make an AI-generated image of the Muppets on the bridge of the Enterprise. Like, what a way to go. That'd be awful, like.
Especially because we just got a good Muppets thing for the first time in so long.
We never covered that. We just do our... It go toward that fault. We need to cover it properly. Because that was very good.
It's so good, and it is a goddamn shock that it has that show hasn't been greenlit for a full season yet.
Yeah, because my kids had never seen the Muppets and they loved it to bits. They thought it was really, really good. I thought it was very sharp. I loved Gonzo, like, zapping around the place every few minutes, like, you know.
So funny, because I was watching it and just the premise, like, because obviously that like variety kind of cabaret show was the thing in the 70s.
Yeah,
it's such a good format for streaming, for just like the platform that we're in. Like it's such like an easy thing to just kind of like turn on at any stage, and also just like it can make for viral clips. Like it is something that you can kind of just cut and clip to social media and like share that around and just make it like, you know, make it popular. It's such a, like, as a format, it is really suited for this style of television that we watch these days. And when you have like that combined with the sharp writing and the craft of the puppet making, I'm really happy it's there, and I just want more of it.
exactly. I'm assuming that they release this as basically a test pilot, in so much as a pilot can be released in the age of streaming.
I'm pretty sure Seth Rogen has said as much.
Yeah,
and what I understand, like its streaming numbers that Disney like disclosed were it was like one of the most viewed things the week it came out.
Oh, well, look, I mean, it's Sabrina Carpenter was in it. Like, that's definitely a big shot in the arm. I would say the only thing that's holding it up is you then, as with the original Muppets, need to find a good dozen high-profile people to take the time to turn up and be in it.
I don't.
So that probably
you only need like 3 high-profile people to sell the season. Then you start getting like weird, like alternative artists. Because that's true. They're the people that are going to actually like run the show. They're going to do it. Sabrina was a perfect fit. Yes. Like, she's kind of a Muppet of herself.
That's true. She's like a singer with a sense of humor. She's not, like, as they say herself, she's not too far away from, like, Miss Piggy to begin with.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, a comedic sense of humor, like.
That's it. No, she has the comedic chops. She has the charm. She has the talent. And it just helps that she is a global superstar enough to kind of, like, push that thing out in the airwaves. Perfect choice.
Yes. But speaking of kind of like streaming and downfall and that kind of stuff, before we get to your big topic, I do feel like we should mention that for the first time, I think since this whole show has been running, basically, there is not a Star Trek show in any kind of development form.
You said that to me, and I'm just surprised that there is nothing.
Yeah, well, Academy has been cancelled. They have a second season, like, in the can. But, yeah, because for the first time, like, it's interesting. I went back to our, like, Enterprise thing a few weeks ago. And, like, we were kind of talking about how, like, you know, there were eras of Star Trek where basically they had, like, Next Gen and Deep Space Nine and kind of Voyager and then Enterprise all being made fairly fluently and simultaneously without stopping. Like, I've talked to people who've worked on Discovery and Strange New Worlds, and the setup for the last decade hasn't been all that dissimilar. They've basically been making, like, Discovery and Strange New Worlds and, like, the Academy in all the same kind of studio spaces and, like, using a lot of the same teams and that kind of stuff. So, obviously, like, that's different for, like, the animated shows. But, like, Star Trek, once again, has been going very fluently without stopping, basically, since Discovery Series 1. And I'm assuming because of the backlash to Academy, for the first time, there's pretty much nothing. There was, like, a soft announcement that the Kirk-led Strange New Worlds spin-off is happening. But, like, you know, check your sources and check back in a year and see if that's still the case. So, yeah, it's kind of bizarre that, like, as someone who actually really likes Starfleet Academy, that all of a sudden, like, Star Trek has just kind of stopped, you know?
Yeah, well, actually, there is a 4th season of Strange New Worlds on the way.
Yes, it has been revealed. Yes,
yeah,
I know.
Linking back, speaking of, they have a Muppet episode. That was the
yes, I forgot about that.
But yeah, that's the only thing that, like, I know is happening. So, like, as you said, that does give them a little bit of leeway if they have a second season of Starfleet Academy produced. That gives them, so say Strange New Worlds would be later this year. Starfleet Academy, second season 2 Starfleet Academy, put them over Christmas, maybe into the new year. So they've got, like, it's not like they have nothing, and it's not as if they have no time. But yeah, I think like a year ago we had like 5 projects that we were like, and here's the roadmap. And yeah, like it does seem like, okay, and what's next? What's happening?
Yeah, because, like, it did feel like after what I would consider 2 or 3 kind of failed attempts to get the momentum going, with the likes of Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds in particular running very fluently, it felt like even if, like, Starfleet Academy wasn't like the huge hit they may have wanted, like, it did have a dedicated fan base. So I'm surprised that all of a sudden, after finally getting the momentum going, that all of a sudden it's sort of like stumbling and stopping pretty much by decisions on the, like, Paramount executive end of things. Like, I find that bizarre in a year where The Mandalorian and Grogu are coming out, that they're all of a sudden hitting the brakes here, like, you know.
Maybe. Now, this is all kind of subject to maybe they're holding off on announcements and they're kind of keeping things tight-lipped. Not pretty normal. I think like people like the community is well enough in tune to know when a Star Trek show is in production, but it's possible that it might just be that we have nothing now, and come Comic-Con in June, there could be more.
That's true, but even if that is true, like, you know, it's like, it's sort of the inverse of the Marvel thing. You know how, like, they were making so much stuff in Phase 4 and 5 that when they hit on something good, like, say, a Shang-Chi, the machine was going so quickly that they weren't able to, like, capitalize on this and kind of expand on it. We might have the inverse with Star Trek, where they might be onto a good thing, but if they stop that momentum, it may take years for the good stuff to come out, like, you know.
Maybe. I said it, like, I think I've said it a couple of times, is I think of, like, all of these big nerd franchise IPs. I do still think Star Trek is in the healthiest spot, and I still think that to a degree. And so maybe sometimes giving space is probably the best thing. The last thing you want to do is burn people out. I do think it was a bad call to try and make Starfleet Academy a flagship show.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think like that could have served better as a niche show and not like pinned hopes on the franchise on it.
Yeah.
That's me assuming that's what they did.
Yeah. I am gutted that Starfleet Academy is gone, though, because I know your misgivings with it, but I did feel that that was one of the strongest Trek series, because they just did the classic Trek thing of having one character be the emotional focus of each episode, and then, like, they sort of expanded the post-burn time period thing. And it was a very pretty show as well, with a sense of humor. So I am gutted that it's going to be gone, basically. Because that's such a rich, like, Trek time period that I would love to play more in that far future thing. It feels very unshackled from, like, canon, and I feel like you can do the most with that, you know?
Yeah, but they do have, like, kind of 3 distinct areas they could play around with, and I'm shocked they haven't done more with what I call the prime timeline, like post-next gen stuff.
Oh, I see.
Lower Decks was like the most up to Lower Decks or Picard,
I suppose, yeah.
But like I'm surprised that hasn't. Maybe they just kind of maybe the thought is that society is too utopian to have enough conflict for them. So that's why they kind of dither between the original, which we know has like obviously the Klingon, the Romulan Wars, and then the post-burn stuff is the scarcity.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, people have been crying out for, like, I'm gonna get the fan-picked name wrong, but Star Trek Legacy, the sort of, like, Enterprise F 7 of 9 led one for a long while now, and you'd think that there would have been, like, it's, you know, I don't get that, like, when fans yell, shut up and take my money, and they don't quite do it. Like, obviously, you shouldn't just give what people ask for, obviously, but it seems like a bit of a slam dunk they're ignoring there, like...
Oh yeah, like that's I had a lot of misgivings about Picard, but I'm blanking on the actress's name. The 7 of 9,
Gary Ryan.
She was probably one of the best things about that, and could easily carry a show. I mean, she basically carried Voyager for about half its run,
and she wasn't in the first 3 seasons.
That's what I mean. Which, a wild side tangent. Have you seen that new Voyager game that came out?
No, I haven't actually.
They released a Star Trek Voyager game in the year 2026.
That's ambitious.
I watched like a bit of it. It's kind of a Fallout Shelter style, like, management sim.
Right.
Where you rebuild the Voyager, but also follow the plot of the show.
Yeah.
And I think there's some what if scenario stuff in it. So it's kind of got a visual novelty feel to it. It looks interesting. I don't think it's up my alley, but I don't know. I'd say you might check it out.
If it's on the Switch, I'll play it.
Yeah, I don't know what it's on. Yeah. But it doesn't look terribly labor intensive. I can't imagine I can't imagine you need all the hardware power of only the Switch 2.
Yeah, I suppose. But no, I hope that that legacy show comes out safe because, like you say, Jerry Ryan and Michelle Hurd, who plays Raffi, like, you know, were a great, like, kind of captain first officer dynamic. And especially because she worked so hard to get all of the, circling back to AI, like, you know, she was principally involved with all of those big protests a few years ago, like the SAG-AFTRA stuff. So, like, you know,
Okay.
Yeah.
Potential spoilers. Did she not die? Like, why do I remember her dying?
I don't think so.
Not like the character, not the actor.
I don't think so either, though. At least so. That's not how I remember it. I could be wrong. It was very Next Generation heavy. That last.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a guide.
A ping in the back of my brain was like, I think she's dead. So, I don't get that often, but I feel like I got something on that.
Right, I've got to go watch 3 seasons of Picard after this. But I'll tell you what, we'll just inelegantly hop onto what you want to talk about this week, which is, I believe it is Resident Evil's 30th anniversary.
Yeah, when I say I've been in a hole for 5 weeks, most of that's been I've been busy with college work. The other part of that is because I have been just completely devouring the Resident Evil franchise.
Now, I have never played a Resident Evil game. Can you give me the most basic of premises or synopsises?
It is the foundation of survival horror in video games.
Okay.
Fundamentally, like we've done Japanese horror as a panel. You can check them out on the socials. Resident Evil is kind of the grandfather of that. There were some earlier like Nintendo games, but the original Resident Evil put the legs into it and gave us like all of the franchises that we would know today as horror.
Okay, and like, is it like, as a survival horror, is it a shooter game or is it just like a get away from the lurking monster kind of game? Or
so the original is a third-person action game, and the franchise has kind of evolved over time into different sort of permeations. So let me just kind of take you on a journey of this, because the original Resident Evil is a tight, haunted house story, where essentially an elite SWAT team called STARS gets stranded in a mansion after responding to a warning signal, and have to find their way out and basically uncover a secret pharmaceutical organization's zombie experiments. And
this is starting to remind me of the film with Mila Djokovic.
Yeah, we'll get there. But the original set a tone that like carried through the next 30 years of games, of being genuinely quite frightening, but also having an underlying sense of camp and fun to it.
Okay. Survival horror fun.
Yeah, like this, it knows how to kind of balance the scale, so it's not all downer all the time.
Okay.
And particularly with that first one, because the thing about the first Resident Evil game is that the budget of that game was a shoestring and a dream. And like, I really encourage you to go look up just like voiceover clips, because these people were not actors.
Okay, you have my attention.
And there's some absolutely iconic lines, like particularly from Barry, one of the side characters. Barry. There's a character called Barry. Barry Burton. Gives you a lockpick and calls you the master of unlocking. Carries you out of a room where the ceiling is going to crush you out and kind of calls you a Jill sandwich. It's spectacular work.
Like when they call Wolverine Jimmy in the movie.
Yeah, you know, Barry, Jill, Chris, and Albert Wesker. One of these things is not like the other.
Oh, what a missed opportunity to have Barry in Smash Bros.
I wish. And so yeah, so like that's the scope of Resident Evil. It's small but it's tight, and it adds a combination of horror action where, you know, it takes a lot of resources to put a zombie down, but then they're down. Yeah. Whereas you're also kind of like doing a lot of resource management, and then there's also a lot of puzzle base. So it's not a long game. Like, that's the reason I've been kind of plowing through them. Most of the Resident Evil games you can do in about 10 hours. Right. So they're tight experiences that lend themselves to replayability and kind of feed into that. There's different scenarios in most of the games. Oh, and the other thing I'll say is, like, those old games, 'cause those games came out in, you know, what did I say, 30 years, 1996 was the original. It is also very surprising how accessible it is to go back to them.
When you say accessible, do you mean in terms of story or mechanics or?
Mechanically, you know, you might look at it and think, oh, that looks a little bit stiff. Like, the big thing, if you've ever heard the term tank controls, like it's kind of the like pressure point of people going back to it. The basic system is like you're controlling with the D-pad. When you press forward, your character moves forward no matter what way they're facing.
Right.
And then the left and right turns them on an axis. Like a tank, you know?
Oh, I see. So it's not that they're walking and now they're walking diagonally. You have to physically turn them like a tank turret, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, like, I think some people kind of see that as being old and archaic, but I think it's a system that once you get a handle on it, you get used to it after about 20 minutes, and is designed for that game, for these tight corridors, that adds to the tension.
Well, it makes it deliberately more difficult to get around, like.
Yeah. But also, once you get a handle on it, you kind of figure out the ways of making it work for you. Like, you can, it's not completely clunky to navigate once you know how to react and turn at a given stage.
Gotcha. And like, these games, are they all like narratives from the point of view of the same character, or is it more of a Final Fantasy, like these are variations on a theme type thing?
Neither, to some degree. It's all the same continuous narrative that folds in new characters pretty much constantly, while also having legacy characters return. Right. And so, kind of jumping forward, so 2 and 3 were iterations on that first game's like tight, enclosed, single space, figure out the puzzles, figure out a way out, tension horror. 3 is an interesting kind of mix-up of the formula in that, as you mentioned, it throws a pursuer in the mix, right? In Nemesis, who is just a giant, like, mutant tyrant who chases you throughout the game. And it's really impressive for a PS1 game that, like, an AI-based monster can just kind of follow you through so many rooms and absolutely wreck your noise. Like, I was playing it and I was impressed at how determined this one video game character was to just absolutely ruin my day.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, actually, side note, I've been playing these pretty much exclusively on the PlayStation. What I didn't realize until this point is that when you play PS1 games through the PlayStation's online, like when you play PS1 games that have downloaded from the PlayStation shop, the emulator playing the PS1 games have a rewind and quick save function.
Oh.
So, like, it basically records you as you're playing, and you can open up a menu and rewind back to a spot. And also then just, like, quick save a state where it just freezes the frame, like, yep, no, we've saved in that part of the game.
All of the Switch emulators have those as well, yeah.
Yeah. Which is very useful. again, once you get into kind of the rhythm of the game and know what it's looking for, you can manage well enough without it. But because I mentioned resource management is so tight, saving involves a limited resource.
Yes.
And like if you die, you go back to the save. There's no auto saves in the game because it's a PlayStation 1 game. They didn't have the memory for that.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's easy to forget that a lot of PlayStation 1 games, like, there were ads in the CD boxes encouraging you to buy memory cards on the assumption that maybe you'd play through a game without one, like.
Oh yeah, no, and even like, and like, auto saving is a luxury we have for not as long as you think. I was playing Yakuza 3, which is a PS3 game, which didn't have auto saves, and kicked me back to a save state. I'm like, what are we doing here? This game is in a HD era. How did we get here? So back to Resident Evil. Skipping forward then to Resident Evil 4, I just kind of want to shine a light on this because if we're talking about the kind of the franchise and its history, Resident Evil 4 is a deeply important game for video games as an art form, because when you are asking about, is this a kind of a run shooter game, Resident Evil 4 codified the mechanical language for what a third-person action shooter is. If you kind of understand me, my
Like, it set the template
up until that point
that everyone follows, like.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's so funny playing games that came, like, I've mentioned a couple of times, I'm a huge fan of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Which has a lot of similarities to Resident Evil in terms of like tone and structure and mechanics. But you can see where it was trying to figure out like third-person action mechanics, and particularly with like Metal Gear Solid 3, there was a system of like pressure the original PlayStation controllers did have pressure sensitivity. If you didn't know, you could like, if a game had it involved, you could press the like triggers softly and then press them quickly to do two different things.
I am currently discovering that with Kingdom Hearts, bizarrely enough, which I know is like a PlayStation 2, but like it affects subtle things like the jump mechanics and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think that like that's still in the kind of the same area that we're talking about. And so it's so funny watching two games come out at like the same time, using the same mechanics, figuring them in different ways, and watching how the industry and developers took one game skeleton and iterated on that. Whether it had been an alternate timeline where they say like, obviously Metal Gear Solid 3 is super influential to video games, but like we could have had a stiffer iterations on a stiffer mechanic. Anyway, interesting. But then on top of that, Resident Evil 4 also introduced the wackier tone and decided to go down an action route, which worked. Like, Resident Evil 4 is an iconic game and probably my favorite of the franchise. But this is the game where you get chased out of a castle by a giant robot of the Castellan.
Okay, I'm starting to see where the goofy comedy thing comes from.
This is fully just like this is a Bruce Willis movie. You are Special Agent Leon S. Kennedy, sent by the President of the United States to Europe, quote unquote, to rescue his daughter from the hands of an evil cult.
Okay, and is there a huge amount of variety in the tone of the games then? Or is it fairly consistent? Like,
no, like since Resident Evil 4, you can kind of ping pong back and forth. Because 5 and 6 that came just after it were pretty dour, like trying to be Call of Duty likes in a sense, because that was like the Xbox 360 era where everything was grey. So they were trying to be self-serious and military to kind of backfire on them. And then when 7 came out, they decided, like, okay, that didn't work. Let's go back to pure horror, go back to the first Resident Evil, set it in Louisiana, we're doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was a hit. It was stellar, and it's probably the scariest game out of the entire franchise. And then 8 comes out, follow on to 7, where in Europe, we have an 8-foot tall vampire lady. We're back in a castle, and there's a man who has Magneto powers. So, like, it manages to kind of go back to that goofy era while also, like, knitting it together a little bit more cohesively.
Right.
So, like, they kind of, because of the way this franchise has evolved over the time, we have these... We have the standards of, like, what the tone can be. And... like, the games do a really, like, there hasn't been a bad Resident Evil game in nearly 20 years. They have got, like, a standard on how they know what works and how to stretch those boundaries, but not, like, go overboard.
Yeah, I getcha. Well, I'll tell you what, how many, like, Resident Evil games are there then? Having played them all and loving them all.
Including everything, I think over 30. Most of them are defunct now. They tried their hand in the online multiplayer pod a couple of different times and didn't work.
Okay, ruling out the online multiplayer.
But in terms of, like,
go on, yeah.
In terms of, like, single player main scenario ones that you can play now, because there's a couple that are still tied to, like, the PlayStation 2 that were never released. I think there's 13 of them.
13. Right. Well,
But, like,
wouldn't you know it, we have 10 minutes left. What can you say about all 13 games in the 10 minutes? I would say give each game 3 major things you want to say about them, like we did with the Marvels a couple of years ago. I'm just looking up our little lists now.
Okay, Resident Evil 1, incredibly foundational and shocking that they managed to get it so right on the first try.
Right.
2, somehow managing to improve on what was already perfection by tightening it up, giving a little bit more detail to a unique scenario in the police station as opposed to a mansion, and also tightening up the controls and making for a better story that wasn't quite as rooted in, like, B-movie schlock as the first one, which it kind of was. Number 3, really interesting. Definitely could see how the franchise started angling towards action, and as I mentioned, really, really impressive that, like, so early on in, like, the PlayStation 1 that they could have such an impressive game AI to, like, have an enemy chase you throughout rooms and throughout the game, no matter where you are. Code Veronica is a bad game. Code Veronica is a game that came out on the Dreamcast that somehow is a backstep from what the PlayStation 1 games were doing.
You are going to have to look up this episode after we're done and see if Dara edited out you complaining about the Dreamcast in any way.
It came out on other consoles and it was still bad then. No, like, that's, yeah, like, it interesting. It's the first, like, fully 3D game. Its story is ridiculous in a way that's less interesting, and somehow it is mechanically less impressive than what came before it.
Yes, I'm looking at the Google images and I'm getting big, like, PS1 games on PC vibes off the artwork and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like, it's impressive that they were able to, like, render, because the thing about the original games is that the backgrounds are all pre-rendered still images, which look gorgeous, but obviously were, like, energy-saving tactics.
Yeah.
It's impressive that Code Veronica managed to get fully rendered 3D backgrounds into the mix, but they didn't do enough mechanically to make it more interesting than what came before it. And it's especially noticeable considering the follow-up to that was Resident Evil 4, which I've mentioned is so tight, so entertaining, so much fun, and still holds up to this day, even though there is a remake of it available as well that doesn't detract from it and only adds to it. You could pick either version of that game and still have a blast.
Okay.
Both of them are readily available. 5, for being a part of the franchise that, like, leaned into the gray, like, military shooter of the Xbox 360 era, its big focus was on co-op, and in that it does shine. It's like, I mean, the best way to enjoy anything is with friends. So long as it's competent in that, 5 is a blast if you can link someone up to play it with.
Right.
6 is kind of just a lesser version of that that's more bloated. 6 is also a co-op game that has 4 distinct campaigns in it.
Okay, well, that sounds like at least you're getting to your money's worth for your time.
Yeah, it's just a shame that kind of all of them are bad.
Okay.
But again, if you have a friend, you're going to have a rollicking good time. 7 is a pure fright fest that, because it came out like the PS4 era, the visual fidelity was at a point where they really get into it and like make the body horror and the gore grotesque enough to be genuinely off-putting.
What console are you up to now, sorry?
This is PlayStation 4. This is into the HD era.
Oh, we've done a huge jump. Okay.
Yeah. 8, iterating again, kind of harkening back to 4's big campy adventure vibes, but again, scaling that way up with the ability of the technology on hand.
Right.
And then we get to 9, which I mentioned. 9 is the most recent one that came out. It is the love letter of the 30-year anniversary of this franchise. And I have to admit, I have mixed feelings about it.
Why? What does it like for you?
So the big kind of gimmick almost with this one is the game is kind of split evenly between 2 gameplay styles, where it does both the slow-paced building dread horror with one character, but then also does the big bombastic blow 'em away action sequences with another character. And they flip between the two. And I just don't think it got the balance right of the two. The horror stuff, the game starts like the first half of the game is pretty much straight survivor. And that's stellar. It uses a very familiar scenario in like a hospital, which is like proof tested to be an effective horror location, and it does like a stellar job of building the dread, introducing the monsters, making the character you're playing, using like modern like hardware technology to really characterize the character you're playing as being scared. Like the way Grace, the main character of 9, is animated, and the way she sounds, like as she's running, she'll kind of stumble and pick herself back up. And it's like the fidelity that we're able to do that really does get across this sense of dread and kind of emulates that to you. And while at the start of the game, when you kind of get to play as Leon and do the big action sequences, it is cathartic. As the game goes on, they take up more time. And as I mentioned, compared to like the big action sequences of some of the previous games, it just doesn't live up to the standards the rest of the franchise is.
Right. It's still an enjoyable experience, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Like, I'm saying all this with the caveat of this game is still like a 9 out of 10.
Right.
But like, of the past 10 odd years, the pedigree has become so high that like this, I have to criticize it in terms of its franchise.
I get you. I'd be the same with Final Fantasy or something like that.
But I'd like it still. If you haven't played the Resident Evil games, I would highly recommend it.
What is the best console to play them on then?
Actually, pretty much all of them. I think they are available across the board.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the original Switch versions, particularly of the newer games, I think were cloud based, which I know we've talked about. But I'm pretty sure, like, because as I said, those first, well, actually, caveat to that. Resident Evil has also been making a habit of remaking their games like from the ground up rebuilds, which are also really, really good and really cool interpretations. The original the original PS1 versions of 1, 2, and 3, I believe are only available on the PlayStation Network and on PC through GOG.com.
Right.
Remakes of all 3, I think, are available on every other console.
I mean, give Kingdom Hearts this. At least it puts all of them in the one place.
Yeah. It's like, I think they're working on it. Like, I would love to see 1, 2, and 3 available on everything, but yeah, that's up to Capcom for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I had to recommend, I would say, obviously, no better place to start than the start. Resident Evil 1, stellar start. With that, if you think that the old PS1 style mechanics and graphics are just a little bit too clunky for you, the remake of Resident Evil 1 is the most 1-to-1 of all of the remakes. All the other remakes are very iterative and change mechanics in interesting ways that are cool if you played the original. The remake of 1 is Resident Evil 1, but better.
Okay, you're selling me on this.
You can't go wrong with either version of 1, and then 4. 4 was my entry point. For the most part, a lot of the Resident Evils are pretty standalone games that just branch out to each other, but you can play any one of them in isolation and still get like the whole.
Okay, well, that seems like a nice place to wrap up for this week. Thank you so much, Kev, for taking us on a journey through 30 years of being chased by horrible monsters down corridors where you can only turn left and right in a very direct way.
And I loved every second of it.
I want to see you do that, like, in a real escape room or something to get the full atmosphere.
Oh yeah, everyone involved would hate me.
That is all we've got time for this week, unfortunately. We'll be back next week, as always, covering more of the headlines as they come out. But until then, I've been Cian.
I've been Kev.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.